I think we're live. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Break the Rules stream. I am Lev Polyakov at LevPo on Twitter. We got my main man Giovanni Pennacchietti, the Sultan of Swing, the head of the Mujahideen.
Sorry about Tuesday. I had a long day yesterday, and I just
No
couldn't
need
get
to
out of bed.
no need to apologize. This is not a stream where we apologize. This is a stream where we stand by our principles, and we have none other than Adam Crigler. Speaking of standing by your principles, with us today, the great Adam Crigler. We got Michael Scotto in the house as well, joining us with the Astrological. So thank you guys so much for coming in here. Don't forget to subscribe, patreon.com/breaktherules. So we are going to start this out with Adam. Adam, you were, from what I understand, at least looking at all those handsome pictures of you, a model back in the day. You are an incredibly handsome human being, both inside and out.
Stop.
And then, from what I understand, then you were working with Tim Pool, and now you've got your own empire. You've got your own Crigler show, and give us a little bit of a taste of what it's like to be Adam Crigler, how you go about things, but also why you went into the kind of field you went into in the first place.
What, YouTube or modeling or?
Let's start with modeling and go from there.
Well, okay. My first girlfriend ever. Her mother actually worked for a model search company and begged me for months and months. And I did not want to do it. I was just like, I'm not interested. I was actually in a gang at the time. I was like, this is so like not.
Wait, like Crips and Bloods? What do you mean gang?
Yeah, I was it was a different time in my life.
Like the West Siders.
Yeah, no joke. Like I got into some trouble. And I've been shot at. Like things, my teenage years were not what people would assume when they look at me, but it was an interesting time in my life. But hey, that's a whole another
no
subject.
Now I want to devote the entire stream to your gangland years. This is not something that I was aware of. This is amazing.
There's some things about that life I don't really want public, so I'm just gonna move on. Anyway, so my girlfriend, she was not about that life. I had dropped out of high school actually, and she was like, dude, I'm not going to date this high school dropout. And so I went back to school and I finished high school, and then I kind of left that life behind. And she was like wanting me to like do this, like, oh, you got to do this modeling. Like my mom, like her mom was like, yes, please do this model search stuff. And then I fell in love with her, and then I was like, all right, I'll do what you want me to do because I love you now. So I ended up doing that. And within 2 weeks, I was flying to California. I did Abercrombie and Fitch with Malin Ackerman, Jamie Dornan. Those are two, relatively famous actors now. I don't know if you are familiar with those two, but it kind of took off. One thing led to another, and then within 6 months, I was living in Italy, doing modeling, and it just kind of became my entire career for a better part of a decade.
Here's one of the pictures that I found online. This is long-haired Adam over here, but there's also a short-haired Adam. You
That's
are
Ralph
short.
Lauren.
Wow, that is amazing. And this is the short-haired Adam. Did short-haired Adam come before long-haired?
No, I was long-haired for most of my adult life, and I had cut my hair just out of my own, like I wanted to, and I actually quit modeling before this picture was taken. And Chanel hit me up, and they were like, hey, we want a skateboarder. We were looking for a couple actual athletes. They had a professional diver, a professional horse, a horseman, whatever, horse rider. And then they had a downhill skater, which was me. I mean, I was more, because I was a professional skateboarder for a while. I used to ride for Arbor skateboards. And I was kind of the all-around guy at the team. Like everyone else was kind of specialized downhills. They had a lot of downhill skateboarders, street skaters. And I kind of grew up in New York doing all sorts of skating. But I do downhill skate, and it is a lot of fun. And they flew me out to South Africa to do that shoot. So it was kind of cool. It was the first time that I actually got hired for me instead of just my looks, as what most modeling is. So that was actually pretty awesome.
And also, you mentioned Horseman. I want to give a shout out to Montana Horseman, who is watching this right now, who was one of the people in your community, an actual horseman living in Montana. Half man, half horse. Human animal hybrids.
Yeah.
A chimera.
Yeah, he's great. He's been following me since before I even started Adamcast. He was in the Timcast chat. And that was my favorite thing about being on the Timcast show was the chat. And quite honestly, my favorite thing about my current show, the Crigler show, is my chat. My chat is absolutely the best. I actually have chat up. I'm not reading it, but I'm glancing over and I see a lot of people that are in my chat normally here right now. It's great to see that they're amazing.
Great to see you guys. Thank you so much for supporting Adam, and be sure to support us. I'm in major shill mode today, so I just want to say that I think that your fans are the greatest fans. Your fans are so good that I think that they would love breaktherules.tv, all the stuff we have to offer. But anyway, enough shilling. The only other thing that I want to say regarding the fans is you have a game that you play with your audience where they have to guess a number, and sometimes they even get a prize. They get some Crigler coffee. So what is going on there? Is there an algorithm behind the scenes that allows you to quickly pick the right number? What is this?
No, I mean, it's a talent to actually watch the numbers fly by through chat when everyone starts guessing, but I've gotten pretty good at it. It's only 1 through 20, so it's pretty easy to spot the first time someone guesses the number. Someone actually sent me a pack of different dice. I do a lot of space stuff. I love space, and it was like a space themed dice set. And I just kind of I rolled the die and I was like, hey, guess what it is, and it just turned into this whole game. And I mean, as I said earlier, I love my chat and I love interacting with chat, and it really does add more interaction. You guys, you feel part of the show, you're guessing. And I'm actually not giving away coffee. It is the chat themselves that will super chat over a certain amount that covers. They're saying all right, sponsor another giveaway. So they'll super chat me to sponsor a giveaway. So they're supporting me, they're supporting chat. That's how awesome my chat is.
Man, we got to do that too now. We should utilize the amazing power of our community to do this kind of stuff, but it does take a lot of dedication and time, and people getting to know you. And like you mentioned before, it was through Timcast that you started familiarizing yourself with a lot of these great people. What would you describe your people as far as, do they fit into any particular branch of human society, or is it all over the place in terms of age, in terms of occupation, whatever?
The first word that comes to my mind is authentic. I think that is the most that thing pops in, because they're real, and I feel that they're honest with me, and I try to be authentic as well, because I mean, there's just so much grifters and fakers and people that don't want to take a stand on any sort of subject, whatever it is, stand your ground, believe what you believe, and be proud of who you are, and I don't know, I think my chat gravitates to me because I try to be as authentic as possible, and it feels like they're being equally authentic with me, so it's great.
If I could say one thing before I also I want to open this up to the panel here, but if I could say one other thing that I am noticing about your people is that they also seem to have real jobs. They seem to be people who are within,
unlike our audience, Lev, they're composed of the neat aristocracy. There you go.
Exactly. But it does make me wonder if there was one thing that I want to kind of open this conversation with to get your take as well as everybody else's here. Okay. It is something that Alexander Bard, who is an amazing philosopher, writer of the Futurica trilogy of books, highly recommend you check him out, regular guest on BTR. One of the things that he was talking about is the coming, which we already are seeing in a way, the coming digitization of not just information, but of culture, the way that we conduct ourselves, the way that we relate to ourselves, our community, the way politics is even done, where the three-dimensional world that people who have been more or less grounded in reality are living in may not be something that's going to exist as it's existing right now, as it existed 10 years ago. We may already be seeing this shift into a much more, let's say, abstracted information economy, which people may not be as used to. So I actually want to relate this back to Geo. Geo, if you remember that amazing stream that we had with Alexander Bard.
Which one?
Which one?
With Paul Town and...
Yes, it was with Paul Town, Logo Daedalus, and all that. What do you think of the point that Bard and the others were making there when it comes to the people who are more grounded in reality today? Is there even going to be a familiar reality to them in the decades to come, or is it going to be something completely alien?
Well, I think that stream we were talking about the mobility of capital and power, but in terms of digital life, I mean, it almost reminds me of what Hannah Arendt said in The Human Condition. Like, there's the life of action, the life of thought, right? Nowadays, it's almost like the life of action takes on IRL, the life of thought takes on this like weird online hybrid existence that has something to do with the real, but not quite. Like, even just talking about the relationship to the audience, like, one thing that's clear is that there are grifters who treat their audience like Jannies and
numbers.
Yeah, exactly. But the Janny goes beyond, because the Janny does the work of spreading the message. But also, like, it's like this weird kind of like, I know it's like a term that's thrown around so much, the parasocial relationship. It's like, you know, a podcast can become like a friend simulator. But I appreciate our audience that they sort of critique us a lot, and you know, sometimes
it's more than just a simulator. I mean, my chat, I mean, there are people that are, as soon as they tune in when I start my stream, are hey, how are you doing? How's your mother? Like, how is she getting over her sickness? I see Robert Wiles in chat, you know, like exactly who I'm talking about, referring to, you know, he'll super chat me just to wish someone else, like who was having a difficult time. Like, it isn't a friend simulator. It is literally friends, because they're communicating with other actual people. You know, it's not like you're tuning into a game where people, like, the AI is your friend and you like communicate with the AI. So it is a blend.
But I guess the big question for me here is there a difference between having this kind of relationship with somebody that you would physically see, where you would, have your body next to theirs, as opposed to it being purely digital?
I mean, is there a difference? Yes, of course. Like, you don't feel someone's energy. You don't feel their, when you're in someone's presence, there's, an unspoken aura that is interacting with your aura. And it's like, you know, people don't really talk about that. Like, and that is what I think is wrong with like the whole Tinder world, you know, meeting people online before you actually get to know them. You're like talking via text. And then, you know, I was lucky to meet my wife in real life, out in the wild, you know, like we interacted and we instantly gravitated towards each other. And it was like a natural, raw, real feeling. And does that diminish, say, the people that are making connections in my chat that are now friends? Because they show up and they're excited to just talk to each other. And then, you know, of course they're showing up for me, but you know, it's interesting because the world that we know, human beings, right? Our society, we are now integrating this new reality, which is the internet, it's a different dimension, right? You said the 3 dimensions is IRL. Now we have this new thing that we're integrating, and we're getting to the point where it's kind of becoming a baseline. And I think it is absolutely real. It's just lacking that, you know, authentic aura reading ability, that because you can't really ever get a good vibe of someone until you're standing in their presence, talking to them, right?
Well, I think you're doing the very best that you can with your audience, given the distances that you face as the wall
right,
separating you. But there is only like so much that we can really do with the people we try to interact with. My concern is, even with something like the various mass mandates that are going on, you have these little kids today that are going to schools. They're not seeing facial expressions other than, let's say, those of their family. Who knows? Maybe an even more extreme Imagine the family that would have masks even like indoors.
There was that one that was interviewed.
They do it.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Wow, that is amazing. But just think about, Styx was bringing this point up earlier. Think of what kind of an effect that would have in the adult life of a person who went through that as a kid, not
Yeah.
having those during the formative years, those basic things. Like, I know, like, I want to bring this also to Michael Scotto, who is a master astrologer, and we could expand on this as the conversation goes on a little more, but just to give us a little bit of a taste, Michael, what do you see happening in the next several years as far as the psychology of people, as far as how they interact with each other as opposed to how they interacted before?
Well, I'll give you like when we go into the chart, I'll show you exactly what's going on. But in general, there's a thing called a Pluto return, which only happens every 248 years. So it's a pretty big deal. When I tried to look at like other countries that had a similar thing, I couldn't even find a country that lasted that long. The only one I found was the UK, and when they had their Pluto return, basically they entered World War II. So essentially, there's going to be some major transformations in the U.S., especially I'd say like 2024, 2025, definitely by then.
What kind of transformations? And also, your mic is a little bit loud, so I had to manually
Oh
make
boy,
it lower.
I'm overpairing. So I mean, people argue about like what it might be, but essentially, it's one way to say it is like it's like a reshape or restructuring or reforming, like a regeneration would be the word of the U.S. I personally think it has to do with the financial system. I think the federal, the Fed is essentially propping up the economy, and it's all going to come crashing down at some point. But it could happen in a number of different ways. I've heard people mention things like maybe not a civil war or something like that, or some kind of dividing the country in two, or maybe states seceding, things like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think those are all on the table, yeah.
But it's funny because nobody cares about the economy anymore with what's going on.
Well, Adam, do you think that there is going to be somewhat of a balkanization happening in the U.S.? My big concern there is what exactly is going to happen to, let's say, something like the nuclear arsenal, something like all of these things that I think do require there being a big power from just all hell breaking loose.
I've been saying for quite some time that it already feels like the divided states of America, and then like even what's going on in Texas, like it feels like most people in Texas like the rules that are being implemented in Texas. It's everyone else that's complaining about it. And it's like, we are called the United States for a reason, because it's a bunch of states united. It's not one entity, as people seem to think that we are. I mean, granted, America on one flag, but we are still the United States. So, I mean, are we going to see Texas secede? They've talked about it. They've had the ability to do so. It's written in their law that if they feel the need, they can. I mean, I have a lot of friends in Texas that would be absolutely about it. Are we going to see it? I have no idea. I think the main issue is China. I think China is slowly trying to take over the globe. And I don't think they're trying. I think they're literally doing it. I think they're making moves. They're slowly taking land from in every single country, including America. China owns a lot of land in America right now, and people don't seem to be talking about that. Even in Texas, I mean, there was like a billionaire that tried to make a new wind farm, and Texas actually banned him from doing it because they're like, we can't have our power grid owned by someone outside of Texas. Like, that's a frightening premise. So these things are all going on behind the scenes. And I think that's really the thing we need to be focused on. And us splitting up as a country, I think, is a horrendous idea. The problem is mainstream media, news, politicians, Hollywood, all these talking heads are keeping us divided. They want us divided. I feel like they want to break us apart because I think they're all getting paid by China. I mean, I'm sure I'm being a little conspiratorial here, but from everything I've seen. I don't know.
Well, I want to ask Geo, because the comment by T-Dubs in the chat over here saying they've got Canada now. Geo, you're talking about this all the time, how China's got Canada. But if also you could channel the spirit of Logo Daedalus, who was a big fan of China.
By the way,
what would he say to this? Yeah.
Well, it's funny you mention that, because after this stream tonight, listen, everybody knows.
Geo, this is the BTR stream. We promote BTR stuff. F the
but
competition, except for Adam's show.
Yeah, thank you.
No, I think it's true. I mean, Australia and Canada and the rest of the Anglosphere, they're pretty much. I mean, it's interesting how, just recently, even like, I don't think this is going to happen, by the way, but Justone, he said that he was going to limit foreign house ownership for 2 years if he gets reelected, which I think won't happen, because I pretty much think that Xi Jinping will try something. But but just to play devil's advocate, I think I don't know. I mean, America is obviously different. It obviously doesn't have a lot of the same pressures from the Chinese state that other countries do, particularly Canada and Australia. But at the same time, I mean, it is a growing concern how, as America erodes its own power on the outside and focuses internally on various, like, culture camp battles, the Chinese can pretty much do whatever they want, for example, in Africa, particularly around Ghana and places like that. And it's, I don't know. I mean, if balkanization would accelerate their influence in America, some people say maybe, like, particularly in places like California, but who knows, right?
Would it be a fair assumption to make, and this has nothing to do with the size of the Chinese people at all, I am merely making this analogy having to do with the metaphorical size of, let's say, the influence of something like the Chinese government over the will of the United States, if we were to have the analogy of that scene from Gulliver's Travels, where Gulliver is strapped down while he was sleeping by the Lilliputians, and it doesn't take that much for him to get up. Would it be a fair assessment to make that maybe America, with all of its creativity, all of its Promethean potential, to think things through and to get all the best people together and to have them create something amazing, that it's kind of like a sleeping giant right now, where we've gotten so good and so comfortable for a pretty long time, for the last half a century, that we've kind of fallen asleep in the wheel and let a lot of little people, be they Chinese government people, be they politicians here, kind of run roughshod. Adam, do you think that is a fair assessment to make?
Yes and no, because the problem is maybe not half, that's unfair. A large chunk of Americans are happy to be asleep. They're happy to be there laying down, pinned down, because they don't care. They're lazy. They have no purpose. Their purpose is now to fight ferociously to remain asleep. That's what it feels like. They're like, no, we need to be sleeping. Like, obviously I'm using your analogy, but you can see my point there. It's like they're like, where me, I want people to wake up. I want people to, do more research and think for themselves and listen to any politician with a grain of salt, and then look at what they're doing and look at the actual bills that are being brought forward and what it actually means. People don't feel like they want to do the work. Have they ever done the work, though? That's the interesting thing to me. If we take a look at America back in hundreds of years ago, and pretty much any country throughout history, a lot of the work has mostly been done by people who have had that much more of, let's say, a will to power to change things, be they the intellectuals who brought upon something like communism back in Russia, if we're talking about not just Marx, but Lenin and Trotsky and those people. In a way, they were able to utilize the masses for their own particular ends. Obviously, it was very horrible what that resulted in. But how much do you think it's worth, kind of like what Mencius Moldbug, who I also want to talk about a little bit later, but how he says that he would rather have, a small amount of people who go to Burning Man as opposed to having all these red state people
because the red state people are still going to be there. They're not going to go anywhere. But as far as people who actually have a certain modicum of influence to change things, it would be people who are within the aristocracy, so to speak.
Well, a lot of these people, a lot of those communistic natured leaders take notes from early Marx, and even Marx himself realized later on in life that he was wrong. He actually begged his followers to stop reading the communist manifesto, like, please stop, because he realized how important capitalism was. These, Stalin, I mean, all these Mao, Pol Pot, like all these people, they just want power.
No, I don't mean to use them. You could say George Washington. You could say
you
could say Napoleon. You could say any historical figure that has
George
come
Washington
about.
didn't want power, though. That's
sure. No, but I don't even mean wanting power. I mean being able to utilize one's power to achieve certain ends, be they positive or negative. It almost feels like that is something that to me seems missing, where when I use the analogy of us sleeping, it's not even so much about the people sleeping. I think people have always been in a sleepy state, more or less. Like most people, they just care about the things that are, like whether they... Yeah, well, whether they have, food at the table, whether they have, practical needs. Most people, I wouldn't expect them to go above and beyond learning about history, learning about politics, learning about what is the kind of system that will enable themselves to thrive.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the actual, aristocracy, I don't even mean, although I think the two go hand in hand, I don't even mean the aristocracy of, the upper crust of society. I mean more of an organic idea of, an intellectual, a mental aristocracy, where you could have somebody who comes from nothing who can utilize this ability to foresee certain things and get up to a higher station in life and being able to influence history to go into a certain direction. So do you think that those people are kind of asleep at the wheel, more or less, and the ones that we have are very low quality individuals who are just succumbing to the pattern of the time and are just degrading
I think society
things.
has done this to us. I think we are taught you can be anything, you can do whatever you want to do in life. For you, move out of your parents' apartment, you're not an adult until you have your own place. There's this push towards individualism, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but there is something that we're losing, and that's the community aspect of humanity. We are social creatures. We need connection. We need to be around other humans. We've gotten this far by teaching each other and passing knowledge along, and it's almost like we're trying to, I don't want to, there's no specific person that's doing this, but, it's we're built or designed almost to care about ourselves, care about what's around us, which we need those baseline things. If you can't eat, you need to focus on feeding yourself, right? So that's what we need. But when you take that need away, we can just go to the store and literally buy everything we need now, right? So we don't really have to worry about growing food and storing food for the winter time, which was all of humanity. Over the past 150 years, our entire lifestyle has changed. So we're still kind of adjusting to that. But now we're in this place of entitlement, purposeless society. There's no reason for people to care, because they are getting all of their desires taken care of. They're people don't understand how spoiled they are in life, right? And this is always something that has bugged me. People are so entitled to everything, and they just complain about stuff. And it's you have no clue what life is like without all of these things. And for that matter, I don't either, right? But I recognize what I have. I'm also vegan. I don't really talk about it, but I recognize that I know what nutrients I do need, that I can take supplements so I don't have to consume meat products. But if the store stopped carrying food, I would go fishing. I live on a river now. I would go fishing out there, So, to bring it back to your question about, are people, what was it? It was are they asleep And do they, to make a difference in the world, I don't think they can, I think that they think that they're lost in the tide, because the internet now has taught us, like, there's millions of people out there, and like everyone's opinion somehow matters, but really no opinions matter. I don't know, it's a
well, specifically, not just people in general, but people who I would say have had a better kind of education or are lucky in such a way that, whether it's reincarnation or whatever, that they do have that particular Napoleonic-like leadership quality to be able to rise through the ranks. Again, those are the people who I would be looking at much more than just saying like Joe, Jane, everybody, you guys have what it takes to make a difference. I mean, maybe, but I'm gonna bet much more on people who are, let's say, of this more aristocratic type, so to speak, to be able to change things. Are those people either asleep, or do you think that, let's say, the institutions like the colleges that they go to right now have brainwashed them to such an extent that any would-be future George Washington never even gets a chance to take that responsibility on because they're just stuck in the self-referential system?
George Washington wanted to make whiskey, and he did actually. He started a whiskey company after he quit being president, or not quit, but after his presidency. He wanted to live in and retire after the war, and they we need you, and that's the best leader, is the ones that don't want the power. And that's the problem with Mao and these communist leaders. They want the power. They want, and the people now, the politicians, Gavin Newsom, for example, he's terrible. I don't, this is my opinion. Obviously, you can think how you will about Gavin Newsom. I think he's one of those people that want the power. He doesn't care about anyone else, but he wants the power. He wants to maintain the power. Now he's pandering to literally everyone to keep it. And I don't think, as an example, Larry Elder, who I hope he wins, because he might actually save California, which would shift the tide of a lot of what's going on. But I don't think he wanted to run for governor. I think he wanted to be an influencer. Dennis Prager said on an interview with Jordan Peterson the other day, people have been asking him to run for office. And he's like, I don't want to. I almost did it one time, and I woke up the next day and realized I can't believe I did it, and withdrew his nomination, because he doesn't want the power. He doesn't want to coerce people and force them. He wants to help them learn themselves. And I love that. And that's part of the reason why I don't want to run for office, but it's how do we stop that? Because there's always going to be people that want to be authoritarians. And those are the ones that go for the power positions, that want to have power over others. How do you stop that? How do you incentivize people to go, go help the world, but put all of your personal dreams aside, like George Washington did? They were like, please come be president. We need you to be president. You have to unite us all now. He didn't want to do it, but he did it anyway.
Well, I want to open this up to the panel as well. I would love to hear Gio's thoughts on this. The one thing that I would just say as an aside is that George Washington came from a landed gentry. And so did a lot of the people who were responsible not just for the American Revolution, but for pretty much any great revolutionary sweep that has ever occurred in the entire world. So he was somebody, even though he did not have, unlike his brother, he did not have a formal education. Despite that, he learned mathematics, trigonometry, land surveying. He was a draftsman. He was a map maker. And by early adulthood, he was, as it says here, writing with considerable force and precision, even though his writing displayed little wit or humor. But the point is that when you have somebody like that, pre-internet, pre-all these creature comforts, who takes it upon himself to learn all this stuff, it speaks to me that there were some influences in his childhood with the people he was hanging out with his family, which I think comes from there being this noblesse oblige, with being this quality of a gentry, that they pass these principles on to their children and so forth. And to me, that's something that's lacking a lot today, where we have these elite institutions, but they seem to be, again, full of a lot of brainwashing. And I don't think that kids are stepping up to the plate as much as they would have back in the day. But that being said, I want to go to Geo. Your thoughts in general when it comes to this idea of who gets to rule as opposed to who should rule as opposed to who is ruling now, and ruling in what sense, in your opinion, should be the right kind of rule to get things back on track?
Well, I don't know. It's complicated because I think the problem with Moldbug is that his analogy about Burning Man is that the people, the sort of like elite Silicon Valley hipsters that he has an allegiance to because that's what he grew up in, which is what I said on Twitter. It's almost weird how Moldbug became the number one figure in the dissident right when he shares nothing in common with the average right-wing person. He's
well, keep in mind, Gio, Napoleon was not born in France. He was born in Corsica. Yeah, I think there's a lesson here. If you catch my drift.
There's a debate whether French people are like half Mediterranean at least. But anyways, I think the problem with Moldbug is that the people at Burning Man, they don't have the same. They have the ability to rule because they're given that by a variety of different structural pressures and nepotism and selection biases. They're not like fit to lead. Like this is the problem with Moldbug is that he just sees power, worship it, roll over. I mean, I'm mischaracterizing it, but the problem is that the people at Burning Man, they also don't have that same aristocratic spirit, at least not in a much older sense. And Godward Podcast in the chat said, let's talk about Moldbug. There's no specific group. It's decentralized. The reason that Moldbug is garbled in this is because he absolutely refuses to read French theory like Michel Foucault, for instance. He's wait,
Geo. Context for all the new people. What exactly we're talking about here? We're talking about
the interview you did with Tucker Carlson. That's where he talks about how there's no head of the snake really. America's like a system that perpetuates itself, which is true. But then he says, well, there's elites, but they're not really elite. Like it's confusing to people when he said that specific quote. It's true that
Adam, did you see it? I just want to make sure. Did you see?
No, I didn't.
All right, Gio, go for it then. So yeah.
Well, it's confusing because there is elites, but there is sort of structures and discourses that have culminated into what we see as like whatever you want to call it, the modern bugocracy, the clown world, whatever, right? It's not just like there's a group of elite, although there is elites, obviously. There is, cheese pizzas at the top that are doing demonic things, but the problem is when
fortifying elections.
Yeah, well, fortifying, right? They get together and they have a party and they we have to be careful because of YouTube. Yeah. But that article was amazing, by the way. I can't believe they did that. Like the absolute gall, right? But the problem,
I know.
Yeah, but the problem with like Moldbug is that he's still stuck in the same like Anglo empiricist tradition of viewing power as actors and agents, and there's much more like nuanced impersonal forces going on. At least that's my criticism of it. In terms of like what Adam was talking about, it's funny because today I was reading this thread by our good friend T.A. Jackson, who's been on the show, and he was talking about
Friendly Whale.
Yeah, and he was talking about the book Lament for a Nation by George Grant, and it's mostly applicable to Canada, but it's about Canada and America's relationship. Back, and he predicted a lot of what was happening or going to happen nowadays. And the one part he says about how America, despite what conservatives say in America, is that the current modern American project is linked to this sort of, on one end, technocracy and the development of quote-unquote progress through technological innovation. On the other hand, like personal freedom is like the god of the modern like democracy and liberalism. It's the absolute sort of instrumental reason and the omnipotence of humans to change reality as we wish because we desire certain things. And he predicted that this would crush communism, this would crush fascism. And he was right, because as soon as you sort of give people that outlet towards this very warped and distorted picture of human freedom, and then you link it to technological progress, it's over. It's like, what are you going to do, right? I mean, I don't want to be that black-pilled, but that's what he essentially says. It's like, how can you sort of put the brakes on it? You really can't. I mean, look at the failures of capitalism in both America, especially Canada, right? But It's just it's the machine. It's the machine. We live in the belly of the beast that's dying, that's bleeding to death, but it's not dead yet. So that's the problem.
I would love to get Adam's response, but before that, Michael, any thoughts on what Gio said and what Adam said before?
Yeah. So you guys are talking about China, right? And actually, the chart of China is pretty interesting as well. There's going to be some big stuff with China in the coming years. At the same time that can I show you guys what we see in China?
Let me do that right now. Here we go. Now you can share. And everybody who is watching this, subscribe, and subscribe. Breaktherules.tv. Here we go.
Well, yeah, actually, let me run you through a couple of events because I was writing down some major events throughout the U.S. history. So we've got the Civil War right here. So 1861. So essentially, when we want to predict something in astrology, we look for these outer planets, and then we just look where it hits the inner planet. So this is like the chart of the US, and then we just overlay the time. Pretty simple, not doing anything fancy here. And you can see here's Uranus, says 8, and this is Uranus, says 8. So it's exactly, and it's 1861. So that's when I think it was like 1861, 1865. You got the Civil War, and then if you another one interesting would be September 11th, obviously. So if you put that one in there. 2001, and this. So you see this planet Pluto right here. It says 12. The ascendant here is 12. So again, it's exact. 9/11, right? And what's interesting is if we look at China. So China essentially has like the same thing going on. So if we look at China, so if we look at the pandemic. Remember, because Lev always says how I said about China and the U.S. in 2020.
Yeah, Michael predicted this.
And the reason I said that was because this is China, and see this says 22 and this says 25. This thing says 22. So again, it's another exact thing. And essentially, what the meaning of this is, it just means that something hidden will come to light. And but see this 5 right here. So if we look at Pluto, which is that big planet that's going to basically tear up the U.S., and I'll get into that in a second. So you see this, it crosses over. It starts crossing over in like 2024-ish. So China seems to be going through something pretty heavy at the same time that the U.S. is going through something heavy. And if we look at the U.S., so the thing I was going to point at is, so this is what a Pluto return looks like. Again, 27. We're basically getting in there now. And this only happens every 248 years. And this is what we call the second house, and it has to do with money. And we know in the US that money rules everything. So, so essentially, it looks like something big will happen as it relates to money. And if we look at, if we look at any of these events that I wrote down, again, you'll see like these planets kind of pretty much exact. So yeah.
Well, going by what you were talking about here, there was a recent, here, let me close this. There was a recent conversation that I think was had by this Australian minister. I don't remember who she is, but Adam, you remember she was talking about using the word New World Order. And one other person I remember using that word, again, unironically. I don't think they were trolling. I don't
Herbert
think they're...
Walker?
No. After him, it was It was what's her name? Lightfoot, who's the mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot. She was also unironically using the term New World Order. So when it comes to all of this stuff, Adam, where do you see most of these, let's say, run-of-the-mill standard politicians today using these kind of terms? Like, do you see them as being true believers? Do you see them as maybe trolling people, to get their jollies on? Or where do you factor them in?
That's a subject, isn't it? Well, we saw, the Victorian premier just announced, I think yesterday or today, that like the whole vaccine passport thing is going to be directly connected to the New World Order. Like she said this, it's like wow, like, they're not even like, they're being more blatant about it. And it does feel like you mentioned, how personal freedoms is very much a pillar of like what makes America America. And it's like, if they suddenly now control what we can do and where we can go, that takes a lot of that personal freedom away. Now, who is behind the movement to, if there is in fact a movement, I don't know if there is or isn't. It certainly does feel that way. But again, I don't have proof, and I really like to be certain with things when I speak of them. There's no real proof of this, but like Gio said, it's like, I can't believe they actually, that the gall they had to like put that article out, that they fortified the election to stop Trump from winning. It's like, that's bonkers, like but they're getting more and more blatant about being open about controlling people. There's already places like Australia is I can't believe what's happening in Australia. It's absolutely insane.
Well, that is definitely not a good example to follow. But what do you make, let's say, from the more reactionary side of Twitter that says that the only way out of this is for us to have a strong man that's going to come in here and set things right? They also see that as being an inevitability of the creature comforts accumulating, while any resistance that people would have otherwise had to a potential technocracy is fading away, that the only way that this could ever get better is if everything just crumbles down, and then the men among the ruins start to rebuild it with some kind of a strong man at the helm. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Well, what do you think they mean by that? Like, they need, like, are these people thinking like Trump will be the answer kind of vibe, or like
let's bring this one to Gio. Gio, what do they mean?
Man among the ruins. Oh my God, you had to like put that in there.
Gooner among the ruins. Or man among the gooners. Okay.
No, I think like, I don't know, that's a very small subset left, because I think most people recognize that the current conditions of America specifically, that's almost like an impossibility. But essentially, I guess like Trump, I think, in terms of the dissident right, was viewed as like, in some ways, like, even though he was a failure in a lot of ways, like as a good move forward in terms of like opening the space up for more like more of a benevolent authoritarian politics. That I don't know though. It's just, but then again, if the actual practice on the ground is that Trump really had no power, because there were people that were part of whatever you want to call it, the deep state or whatnot, that were making decisions behind his back. Like, for example, that one hideous bug man on Twitter recently that blew up, Vindman, whatever, like basically defied orders. But he's a hero because he's some bureaucrat in the military that told Trump, defied a basic order, right? So that's the problem. I think the hope is that there's an age of like direct politics that in some ways is like alien, but in other ways not so alien to America, because the conception that the founding fathers had and the way that they actually materially, I think this is Moldbug's point, and I will give it to Moldbug, is that the way they actually practiced power in those, after the revolution period was very much similar to more of an authoritative source of an aristocratic or imperial sort of structure. So I think that's what people are talking about, is that politics, the sort of like civility of like managerial liberalism, that's sort of going by the wayside on either the political left and the right. And then in the future, there will be more either whatever you want to call it, populism, or like certainly like the woke crowd will always have this sort of the neoliberal order on its back. But it's just a matter of, will things get so ridiculous that people will actually be like, maybe the idea of some type of an authoritarian figure, maybe that's a good thing that can, actually drain the swamp in Minecraft, of course. But
well, I hope that there is not going to be this authoritarian figure for the reasons that I've already mentioned. And
in Minecraft, Lev.
In Minecraft. And the people
in
who
Roblox.
are new, and the people who are new here could check out all the past BTR episodes to know what I'm talking about in relation to this. But this is not about me. This is about the panel here. So going back to Adam, if you had some kind of a crystal ball and could foresee what exactly is going to be happening here regarding direct politics, as Geo talked about right now, do you see there being this trend of not like, let's say, a decentralized kind of localized rule by some people who have influence, but this technocratic Xi Jinping like move in the next years, either from the left or the right?
There's a few things I want to touch on. First is that feeling of these people saying, we want that one person to come and save them or whatever. I'm kind of like paraphrasing, but it's like, that's the problem. The founding fathers wanted the people to have the power, right? And it's like, for that to happen, they have to participate in everything. And that's not just voting. It's these people, I was talking about entitlement earlier. They are so entitled that they're, instead of thinking, I'm going to get into this to help make a difference, they're going, I want that one person to like come up and fix it for me, and like that attitude is why we're here now, right? It's, now some authoritarian's going to come in and fix it. No, the people in power want the power, and they're going to have power over you if you don't participate in the society that we have been given by the giants that we're standing on, right? So here we are, where people would rather have someone else come and save them from the situation they're in, instead of standing up and starting to participate in local government. And it starts at a local level. And we're kind of starting to see it because of because of the pandemic, right? Parents had time to see what their kids were learn about, the Zoom calls and well, like, what is this critical race theory? Like, there's all sorts of different things. Like the guy in Project Veritas just exposed for like turning their kids into revolutionaries, against the US government to help bring them down. And it's like, this is the one thing that we've seen is people are waking up, and it's great because we need people getting in and taking over and being a part of society instead of just worrying about their own little personal bubbles. So, but what was your question though? I just wanted to get that out.
So my question is, even though that is a very encouraging statement and something that I hope would happen, we're already seeing it. We recently had Paul Rossi on with Sticks, Hex, and Hammer 666, who I'm sure everybody here is very familiar with.
Yeah, Sticks is great.
Yeah, and Paul was a teacher at a very prestigious elite school in Manhattan, math teacher who got fired for opposing critical race theory. He seems to be a little bit more on the doom and gloom side, not fully, he's not like a full-on black pill doomer, but at the same time, just seeing the things that he has seen right now, he hopes for the best with various organizations that are fighting against this, but he also realizes that there's only so much that you can do. My biggest concern, and this is kind of going to factor in like how we see as realistically as possible, not what we hope will happen, but what is the most likeliest thing to happen right now, and what are, let's say, the hopeful scenarios that would be our plan B when it comes to getting ourselves out of this worst case scenario. So there we go. That's the curveball for you, Adam.
I mean, goodness sakes, it's like asking, how do you solve the world's problems? It's like society we built is a freaking 1,000 different cogwheels moving together. And, it's like you can't fix one problem without fixing like 100 different other problems that makes other things cause problems. But like, what is the future? I mean, I don't know.
I'll give you this example. Tim Dillon, who I'm a big admirer of, he was talking about on his show how he thinks that content creators, YouTubers, whatever you want to call what we do here, we have about 5 years left. And he says, make your money in the next 5 years because things are going to start closing up. They're going to start ramping up in the totalitarianism. To me, that's not exactly something that I would, number one, take to heart. And number two, it's not something that I would say that, okay, let's say, for example, that does happen. It's not books closed. In fact, to me, that's actually a sign that the more this ramps up, the more there would start to be an opposition to it, a state of normal people who are on the fence being absolutely fed up, and then we would start to see certain changes. So if I can, let's say, paint a clear picture of how I see the future and kind of get your thoughts on what strategies we can employ, then is that, let's say we do have this more of a creeping technocracy, it gets into the schools, it gets into, despite the fights against it, it gets into colleges, it gets into regular jobs that people have, to such an extent that anybody who is curious is going to start to be excluded. It's only going to be for the brainlets. It's only going to be for the people who are going to kowtow. And so I think that there must be something that's going to have to be done with all the people who can actually think. And that's where I would love to hear your thoughts on what is, in this potential scenario, going to happen to the people who can actually think.
I think there's a lot more of us than they think. I think that there is a significant portion of the human population that wants to be free, that wants to have control over their own lives and wants to work for a living and have a true purpose that gives them meaning. And there is, right now, it almost feels like the extreme sides, the two extreme sides are fighting. And the majority of people, in the bell curve of life, where most people reside in that middle area, that want to be free, they want the best for others. And I truly believe that. And I think that if these authoritarians, whoever they are, whatever, if they really try to ramp up and take people's freedoms away, the optimistic person that I am wants to believe that they will rise up, that there's a lot more of us than there is of them. There is billions of humans on this planet, billions, right? How many of those billions of people are in control, right? How many? It's not billions, it's not millions. It's less than that, 1% of the 1%, right? What are they going to do against billions of people that try to stop them, right?
This may be where we disagree, and I respect your view. And again, I really hope that you are right in that there are way more people than I may think. Personally, I'm more of a quality versus quantity type of person when it comes to, like I said in the very beginning of the show, that I believe in a David versus Goliath scenario. I believe that there's going to be a minority of people out there who have what it takes to, regardless of whether there's a million people or a billion people that are opposed to whatever they do, that they would just be a lot more capable of. And it's not even so much that other people would not want freedom if given the chance. If you say, would you rather I lock you up or I give you freedom? Obviously, people would say, yeah, don't lock me up. I want freedom. But then those people are going to find that they're going to have to work for a living. They're going to have to do certain things to get by. And my fear is that then when the prodigal son comes back and there's some kind of a Maduro-type dictator who would say, I'm going to give you all of these free goodies, just vote for me, that they're going to say yes. The thing that I think we're battling right now is idiocracy. It's there being too many people in the world who are stupid and too many people who will, not that they want to be ruled, but they're too lazy to resist being ruled, and they're just going to go with the flow. And you're right that there is going to be a breaking point. If it comes to that, but I personally think that breaking point would be something that would be directed not by a strong man, because again, I think that's the worst case scenario if we get some kind of a maniacal totalitarian leader to come in. Yes, small violin.
My freedom.
Small violin. Yes. No, freedom is freedom is very important, which is why I believe that there should be an elite. I believe that there should be a hierarchy. I don't believe in democracy. I believe that democracy is tyranny of the majority. But when it comes to having... Yeah.
And America isn't a democracy. It's a constitutional republic.
Absolutely. Which is why I think that there's going to be few but very smart and very capable and most importantly very wise people that come out of the woodwork when things get really bad who would be able to put things together. At least that's my hopeful ray of sunshine after the storm, after the dark winter.
So what exactly did you disagree with me though? Because I agreed with what you were saying. You know, you're saying that you don't believe that there's a majority of people that will finally stand up against when authoritarians finally crack the whip.
I think that they would stand up only in the case that there would be a minority of people within that majority that would kind of start ringing the bells. Without those people ringing the bells, I don't really think much would happen. I think people will too easily start succumbing to creature comforts and to just going with the flow.
I think both of those things could happen. I think you are right. It is going to take people that are standing up. And I feel like your show, my show, other people's show. Savannah was on my show the other day. Like people like us that are bringing together like minds to have civil conversations about what is going on and making more and more people aware of what is actually happening. That our freedoms are slowly being milked away. Slowly but surely, so that these authoritarians can take over. You know, we're sowing the seeds for those people that you're referring to, the Davids of the future that will rise up and help, lead the idiots, right? I mean.
No, I'm not saying they're idiots. That's
I know. That was the wrong word. Right? Not the idiots. More just the masses that, go with the flow instead of, that are just kind of like, whoa, all right, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's like a peer pressure. It's like you could have, let's say, more repressive societies out there where, let's say, they would, do horrible things to gay people, throw off the rooftop, all that stuff. And I'm sure that there would be people who are just there looking at it and seeing, okay, that's not great. Like, I wouldn't personally do that. But then what could they do? They don't want to be the hero. They don't want to be the person who would then be a martyr. They would rather just, stick around with their family, provide for their family. And I don't blame them. But it's like, to get to that point, that's something that we had in the USSR, where some people would just go along to get along. Other people, even more horrible, like my mom's friend read certain forbidden books along with my mom. Her friend ended up being reported on by her own parents to the KGB along with my mom. So just think about that level. That is like a whole next level of brainwashing that people experienced back in the USSR. And by no means do I think that the people today, especially with the incredibly low level of education we have, are not capable of going down that road. I am, though, like to be contrary to what I said before, I do see these populist movements rising up, and that's great. But even I'd say in like let's take a little bit of a detour away from politics for a second and talk aesthetics and art and even spirituality. So when I take a look, even like somebody like Trump, and I see the gaudiness of his apartment, in the penthouse of his building, when I just see the reality television swill that people have eaten for a long time here in the United States, and we're talking about like the Kardashians and all that stuff, and then I go around New York City, I look at all these beautiful buildings that's made with sacred geometry, like all the moldings, all the neoclassical stuff, and so I look at those two things, and like, I don't know what you personally feel when you would compare those things, or if you've ever thought about comparing those two things together. But for me, that is, if not an intellectual decline, an aesthetic and a spiritual decline. And I'm curious, Adam, if you have any thoughts on that.
I mean, I lived in New York for a long time in my adult life, and I've seen those beautiful, the beautiful decline of art. I mean, there was someone posted recently. They posted 3 pictures of classic art, and it was like art that was appreciated before World War II, and then art that was appreciated after World War II, and it was just kind of like a bunch of boxes and like abstract shapes and stuff. And it feels like there is absolutely a decline of art. And I mean, even architecture, I've spent a lot of my adult life in Europe as well, so I've seen these beautiful, incredible churches and buildings that are hundreds and hundreds of years old, some of them thousands, and you could see what people appreciated back in the day. And like, we don't, and it goes back to that conversation about, what people appreciate in their own lives. And it's like, we are taught to care about ourselves. We're not taught to worry about the future generations, 5 generations from now. Like, no one cares. I was watching a show about building houses, like cool house, grand designs, something along those lines. And it was this couple in England that was building this house on the edge of a cliff that in 60 years would fall into the river or the water, the ocean. And they were like, yeah, we don't care because we're not going to be here. And it's like, that is the attitude that a lot of humans have. Why should I care? I'm going to be dead, because we're taught to like only care about our own lives now. And that is a huge reason we're here. Like, what's it going to matter? I look at Nancy Pelosi, the woman's 80, and she's a nightmare. And I don't think she cares at all what happens in the future.
She was kind of a cutie back in the day. If you saw that picture of her and JFK,
100 years ago.
About?
I don't know that picture. And that is, I've never thought I'd hear the term Nancy Pelosi and cutie in the same picture, or other than maybe watching some Netflix.
Throw it up, Lev. Come on.
Here you go.
Can't cut
no. I was, of course, I was gonna throw it up. What do you think? Here we go.
Yeah, she's all right.
Adam, thoughts?
I see her eyes, man. She's the evil woman.
Oh no.
Yeah, but Adam, don't you think that architecture being beautiful, that's fascism, according to Susan Sontag? So that's, beauty is fascism, guys.
Yeah, it's take the picture away. Come on. Get me out of here. Wait, she's staring into my soul.
I'm gonna replace it with a different picture. Wait, hold on, Gio.
Sorry.
Before, because I know you got a lot to say on the subject, I wanted to compare these two things here.
As an artist myself.
Yeah, so I wrote as above, so below. So here we have, I think this is like a palette. I think this is Versailles. I'm not exactly sure, but this painting over here, if you can see on the screen,
that's the Grand Hall, yeah.
Yeah, the Grand Hall. You have the people, and then you have the columns, and then you have the dome on top. And then to compare it, you see I have over here this nice field of flowers and trees. And so I see that the flowers are like the people, wherein the people, look at the way they're dressed even. Their legs are like the stems. They're like shirts, bonnets or whatever are like the flowers, and so are the heads. You could even say like the system of chakras that we have, that those chakras, they're flowers, and the crown chakra, that's like the crowning flower at the top of our heads, which connects us to the divine. And then the trees are kind of like these columns that support this dome, the atmosphere, this dome of heaven, whatever you want to call it. So I keep seeing these patterns that I think in the classical world was something that people just kind of had an inkling of, like when they constructed these things. I don't even think they were fully aware of what they were doing, yet they were in a way replicating sacred geometry within their own landscape, within their own society, which I think does something to the human spirit. And I'm curious if you would agree, disagree, any thoughts there, and then I'm going to go to Gio.
Well, my mind instantly goes to how do we instill that into humans again, right? How do we bring that kind of energy back into our art, into our architecture? I mean, there's a lot of architecture, but it's like, it's weird now, like I love the green buildings where they're integrating life and forestry into skyscrapers where it's foresty, and they have like
eco-modernism.
I love that. And I think it's trying to reblend nature and architecture again, which is great. I think it's a good move forward, but it doesn't change the fact that we have lost a lot of that desire to be presentable and have everything we do be the best it can be, right? I mean, and I'm kind of generalizing a little bit right now, but I feel like it can be applied with most things that we do. Like when I do my show, I really can only talk about my own personal experiences, but like when I do my show, like I didn't do my hair. I had really long hair till very recently. I cut my hair.
Same here.
And I would just throw it back and it'd be disheveled. It'd be like, and I didn't think about how much it affected what I looked like. Right. And I recently cut my hair and I looked myself in the mirror and I felt like I was a completely different person. And I am in a different place now than I was a year ago. And, that's a whole nother conversation. But me presenting myself and like, now I do my hair, I put a little gel in my hair now. And I feel like I'm putting a little effort into it. And just that little bit of effort, I feel makes such a big difference for the way that I present myself, the way that I am I'm on stage every night, Monday through Friday, essentially, standing in front of the internet. And I feel like it helps me be a better person in a sense, but I didn't care. I feel like I never really cared. Even when I modeled, when it was my profession, I didn't care. I didn't show up to my castings looking the best I could be because I just didn't really, I just didn't care as much as I probably should have. I could have probably done better, but I didn't think about it. And now I'm doing something for me. I'm on stage for me now. And I'm like, it's so much better when I care about the way I present myself. And that picture you showed us of all those human beings that were basically flowers, that doesn't happen anymore. People don't really care what other people think. And not that that's a bad thing, because there's a balance, I guess, right? I mean, you can not care what people think, but still want to project yourself as like the best you can be. And that's more for you, really. And I'm doing that for me. And
well, there's comfort. That's the other thing. We see people walking around like a lot of ladies walk around in the yoga pants. I'm not sure if having that tight of an enclosure is comfortable. I guess it is. I don't know. I'm not a woman.
Yeah.
I don't really know what that's like. But
right.
It's still something that strikes me as, you're not really putting on a dress, which I feel would be much more comfortable. But anyway, you're not putting on a dress. You're not putting on some frilly things that make you look like a human flower of sacred geometry. You're just kind of like putting on whatever. And I noticed like the one neighborhood that's around, like right now I live in Brooklyn, and the one neighborhood that I would say is very much still following the guise of early 20th century styles would be the Jewish neighborhood. Not the Hasidic neighborhood, but the Jewish neighborhood of like the, like conservative, kind of like Ben Shapiro-ish Jewish people, where when they walk around, you see them all dressed up in their, nice suit and tie. The women are dressed like Geo. This is like your trad fantasy come to life. The way that the women dress in those neighborhoods.
Oh my God!
No, but that's
killing
because,
me here.
But I think it is because
you're destroying my credibility online with esoteric racists on Twitter.
I think it is because they're able to connect to something higher.
We've had guests refuse, Lev, because of never mind.
I don't care about them if they refuse, because this is an open forum for whoever, as long as they can respect other people's thoughts. But anyway, when it comes to this idea of wanting to go for something greater than yourself, it's almost like we're at a crossroads where if you look at the archaic Greeks, or if you look at older societies, if we take this idea as fact that they had not so much of an idea of themselves as a separate ego being, but saw themselves as being part of a greater whole, kind of like not even having as much self-awareness of them being, me, Lev, or me, Adam, or Michael and Geo. It's almost like there may be a development over time of the individual growing out of the collective, where they are going to have to take on more of a responsibility, as opposed to having certain things be done for them, as opposed to these are the rules, these are the traditions, they were given to us from God and we should respect them, and if you cross these rules then you're going to go to hell, or once we take those traps away, it's almost like we're giving people more responsibility, but also we're giving them more of a chance to screw up. It's almost like we think of ourselves as being like these little kids right now, and for the most part we are. I think there is way more of a delayed development, but at the same time,
Agreed.
we haven't been given this much freedom ever. So it's a very interesting time to see, like, what are we going to do now? Because I think that same thing with the internet. We have the ability to get so much information from the internet. Yes, all of it. Like, think of anybody in the 200 years ago. They would have died if they found out, oh my God, you mean that I can get the information about like all these philosophers, all of these sciences, anything I want at my fingertips. It's like, yet you people are playing Candy Crush Saga on the subway. What the fuck?
Right.
What the fuck?
So how do we bridge that? So you said we're in this crossroads, and how can we balance the individual with the societal group? Like before that, it was all about building together, and you're really a nobody that you can only thing you can do is be a bee in the network of buzzing, where now it's like everyone's an individual. Everyone has the ability to be the person, the individual person. So how do we maintain that individualism while also bringing back the desire in people to help others just innately as a societal norm? Because I don't think that's a thing anymore. What is this?
Okay, so this is the Temple of Luxor. And this is something that I got from this wonderful documentary, a favorite of Joe Rogan's, called Magical Egypt. It was created by...
I'm very, very intrigued because I love Egypt.
So you could see over here these various chambers.
Was this the John Anthony West?
Yes, John Anthony West, exactly. So these chambers, they correspond to the different parts of the human body. You could even, I think that they were talking about how the third eye was also discussed there. And
the pineal gland.
Yeah, the pineal gland, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, it's this recognition that there was a large-scale project back in the day, multi-generational project, to get these things in order for a greater purpose. But at the same time, Adam, what I personally think, I could be 100% wrong about this, but I personally think that most of the people who were doing this had no fucking idea what they were doing. Like the people who were building the bricks, who were laying all this stuff down, I think that there were blueprints, there were orders that were given to them, but the priest class was separate from the worker class, and this was knowledge that was passed down all the way from, if you believe in Atlantis, it was passed down from Atlantis. It was passed down from the antediluvian times when we were much more aware of certain things than we are today. I think it's much more easier to devolve than to evolve, at least if we're talking about intellectually speaking.
Okay, yes. I love the direction where we're now headed. I disagree a little bit because they have found lots of burial grave sites outside of the pyramids to basically prove that they weren't built by slaves, that they were built by actual builders that were honored to work on different projects in Egypt. Going back to a couple different, I love Egypt. I've done a lot of research on Egypt. So you can tell that it's not, the people that built these things were knowledgeable. They themselves had some sort of a awareness of what they were building and were proud of it and were revered in the society. So I think that it might have been some sort of a combination of what you were saying. I agree with you. It is absolutely easier to devolve than evolve. Like, we as a society are so entitled that we think that we are the greatest humans have ever achieved. And I don't know if I agree with that, because I don't really know what I know about Atlantis, but I do feel like there's I love Tesla. He was my first deep dive, and he was also obsessed with Egypt, obsessed with the pyramids and trying to understand how they worked.
Well, they all were. Alexander the Great, Napoleon,
for good reason.
Yeah.
Because
Plato.
There is, what are they? They're definitely not tombs. That is absolutely bonkers. I think that they were some sort of energy system that we don't understand yet. I mean, it basically used the telluric current. That's what Tesla figured out. That's what his whole Wardcliffe Tower is to basically siphon off of the telluric current and send it out for free energy, and which is amazing. If we could harness that, and if you really go like a step further back, Earth is a giant battery. If we can understand magnetic energy, which is essentially what gravity is, it's like Tesla was almost on the verge of manipulating gravity. Had he been given the power to continue his research instead of being shunned and pushed into a corner, which is really, I think, devastating for the human race. But
I just don't know if we see, this is going to be a controversial take. I don't know if we're at the level where we would deserve to have the kind of responsibility of this kind of technology. And I'll tell you why.
I agree.
Because, well, like, I don't know if you would agree with this. I think that when it comes to utilizing something that gives you a lot of energy, you can use that energy for good. You can also use that energy to annihilate an entire country with, something very simple. So that's like, given our level of education here and given just how many people there are and how unaccountable our elites are, not to even talk about, like most people that are out there, it's a very dangerous thing to be able to have this kind of energy and this kind of knowledge, which may be why the priest class in any civilization, in any mystery school, like, why do they keep it a mystery? It may be that knowledge is something that is both beneficial and dangerous, and that there may be other planets out there that, let's say, have had much more of a trust in their community to be able to wield a lot of this responsibility, while here it's like, I don't exactly trust the people that we currently have at the level that we're currently at to wield it.
I don't know what's there to disagree with.
Yeah, well, no, not everything has to be.
I'll tell you why we're not worthy, Lev. Did you see that news article from, what's that popular Twitter that everyone follows? Breaking News or whatever.
Breaking 911. That one.
No, it wasn't that one. It was the other one. Info something. Did you see that they're taking? There was that time capsule at the base of Robert E. Lee's statue.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You saw that, right?
You know what I call it? I call it the safe space capsule.
Yeah. I shit you not. They're going to replace it with the Ghanaian like Conti cloth, the one that Nancy Pelosi was.
Oh my
god!
God!
Do you have that picture, Nancy Pelosi? We've had more Nancy Pelosi in the stream than any other. So they're gonna do that. A vial of expired Fauci ouchie, just for YouTube, and of course a imperial American, global American Empire flag, the LGBT flag pin. Of that's what they're. This is like, I said it on Twitter. They're like smashing the old religious symbols. The new empire, the new regime is replacing it with new religious symbol. Like literally a Stone Toss comic or a Sam Hyde $1 Million Extreme skit. But Adam, are you a fan of $1 Million Extreme? Were you at the time?
I don't know what that is. No.
Oh my god.
We should definitely do a stream with you and Charles Carroll. That would be amazing. But here is what you were talking about.
Oh my god, they have the actual picture. Oh my god. What is that Black Lives Matter poster? Yeah. Oh my, might as well just put a dildo in there. Might as well put oh my god.
Wow.
What other items is there? There's
a George Floyd 2020 National Geographic cover.
Of course.
There is, I'm not sure who these people are over here. There's a photo with, I don't know. I mean, honestly, like, I don't really Stop Asian Hate. That one's in there too.
I wonder statistically who is doing more of the Asian hate, but that's besides the point. That's,
Well, when it comes to this time capsule, I think this is a product of the time, and we've had a lot of different fads that came and went. I mean, maybe we are going to get struck by a meteor or something to kind of like shake the Etch-a-Sketch board up again. But there are things that I'm also fascinated by, the idea of there being a breakaway civilization. Like, I don't know, Adam, if you've heard about, and again, this is like going way in the weeds, but I figure if we already started, why the hell not? So,
yeah, we're out there.
Have you ever heard of Operation High Jump?
No. Actually, yeah, it sounds familiar. I don't know what it is, though.
So Operation High Jump was allegedly this operation where this high-ranking Admiral Byrd went on an exploratory expedition into Antarctica.
Antarctica, yeah, okay.
Yes. And supposedly there was a fight between him and those who escaped from the Third Reich, and were utilizing these UFOs that even back then and some years afterwards, if we're talking about like the Battle of Los Angeles, where, you know, we have pictures from there and we have multiple reports talking about how there were these UFOs that were being fired upon, and there was only like friendly fire that ended up resulting in certain deaths there. But after that, there was also the Foo Fighters, which flew around, I believe it was the White House in the, I think it was around Truman's or later Eisenhower's time. But either way, we've had all these different reports talking about these crafts that can go into the ocean, that can go out, that can just like, you know, improbably move around. And we've recently, like for the past couple of years, we've kind of had a resurgence with that recent Navy video that ended up coming out of similar things. And it's like, this isn't anything new. People were talking about these same aircraft, these same techniques for a long time. So some people look at this as being not some little green men BS, but it actually being the result of human beings, maybe partly human beings who were involved in World War II. I mean, it goes way into the weeds as far as what kind of conclusions can we even make from even beginning to assume something like that. Because something like that would make you look at history in a completely different way. And I'm curious, like, when it comes to using Occam's razor, how much for yourself, Adam, would be enough to put yourself in the position of not just kind of like because I'm on the fence, I'll be honest, with all this stuff. It's fun to think about, you know, it's romantic to think about, but like, what do you need to be much more confident in the way that history worked?
Oh man, what a question. Well, with like these spacecrafts, alien spacecrafts or human spacecrafts, whatever they could be, or
whatever.
My goodness, I would need much clearer picture. It's 2020, 2021. Like, why is it still this weird, fuzzy, grainy BS picture? Like, why the military is using like grainy, you know, picture tracking software? Like, I'm sorry, bullshit. Like they've got to have significantly crisper video of these things. Like, what we get is it feels like breadcrumbs to keep us asking these questions, when you know they have better pictures of whatever that was. Like, why aren't we seeing it? And I'm more inclined to believe that it is in fact some sort of secret military project that they don't want the world to know about it, that it's easier for them to let us think that it's aliens or some sort of extraterrestrial object, because it gets people like jazzed about it and whatever. And when in reality, it's like, actually they figured out how to a new engine system that isn't using propellants or something along those lines. I mean, wouldn't that be incredible? But you mentioned it earlier, though. It's like power, like energy, right, is power. Like, having the ability to harness a lot of energy is really where the power lies. I mean, think about who has the most money on this planet. It's the people that control the power, the energy, the gas, the monetary value of all that stuff that pushes everything. If they had some sort of technology that they were able to fly anything, like, why would they want anyone to know about it? They wouldn't. They would want to keep it to themselves because, as you said, knowledge is power. So the priests of the nowadays, like, who are those people? Like, who? We don't know. You know, we have no idea who those people are. I don't know. Probably none of us know their names, just as they would probably want.
As a thought experiment, as this assumption that, again, the only reason why, and I do have to read the actual South American article, if I'm able to find it, from this Argentinian magazine where supposedly Admiral Byrd gave an interview talking about what he saw, that assumption would then mean that these are actually, you know, not secret American projects, but that they are actually Nazi projects. And that is a whole different twist on how exactly we observe reality. But then you add to that something
Giovanni
like
believes that the Nazis. Never mind.
Okay, well, that may be too much. But one last thing I would say is that there is.
Well, Nazis are cringe nowadays, Lev. Come on.
Well, no, of course.
These normies believe in them now. They're cringe.
Literally everyone's a Nazi now if you don't follow their narrative. So,
so we're
the UFOs. I mean, they're cringe. Sorry, Lens.
Well, we're gonna go to
normies
believe
in it.
We're gonna go to super chats soon, but before that, have you read this article about this Israeli chief space scientist guy who's like in his late 80s, and he was talking about how there's this galactic federation out there, and how we are human, just like we said before. It's interesting how the same theme comes up. We are not ready. We don't even know what space is. And that seems to be the consensus, that there are these extraterrestrial beings out there. But again, just to shift the way that you guys who are listening to the show right now, watching us, how you think of aliens, just as a thought experiment, try to think of them more looking like us, like human beings, because I think like the human form is a good one to explore reality with, if you catch my drift. You know what I mean? Just like we're not on all fours, we're not just looking like like the deer, in the in all these different sides. We have a fixed gaze, but we can move our heads around to adjust it. We have a very good way of exploring reality that I think
a large brain.
Yeah, large brain. And I
analyze
think,
it.
And with certain additions, certain extrasensory abilities that we may have had in the past, like again, I'm leaning on us having had certain abilities and losing them, as opposed to slowly gaining them over time out of nothing. I believe that chakras, kundalini, the third eye, all this stuff is a birthright of the human being. And when I say human being, I mean any embodied being that can carry themselves the way we do throughout the entire universe. You know what I mean? That seems to be something that connects us to the higher spirit. And so whether there are like Nazis out there that are working, wouldn't that be funny, by the way? Just think about that for a second. Like the sons and grandsons and granddaughters of like the Nazi party people working together with the Israeli space people. You know what I mean? Like that is, and the Americans. I mean, they've already...
far out there.
Well, not as far out there if you consider Operation Paperclip. We've had the German scientists who were here in NASA, so sure. It's like these things, they may have an ability to happen. My one hope, though, is that if that did happen, that there would be a lot of regret for all the horrible things that their grandparents have done and all that. Like, I do hope that when people are at that level...
Well, we're calling into question the state of Israel, Lev, obviously. That would...
Well, yeah. We're not gonna.
But we went ahead of ourselves about the beauty thing that we didn't.
Well, let's cover the beauty thing, and then we are going to go to super chats. So, guys, sneed us your super chats right now, and we are going to go through the super chats. And again, I think Adam's audience is one of the best audiences that we have ever had here on BTR, and I am highly appreciative of you being here. Please subscribe, like, share this video, and also become a part of our Discord server. I'm going to send the link to the Discord server right now, so be a part of that. Anyway, Gio, go for it.
Yeah, sorry, my cat Benito was behind me, but now he's here with me. So, no, about the public buildings, I think even like Tucker had that speech. I think like me personally, like I can find the merits in certain things like brutalism, but I think nowadays we're just, even like the beginning of like modern urbanism with Gropius, it had like a spiritual idea at its root, like these shining cities. But I think nowadays when it comes to either like purposeful abstraction of, it's this weird like mix of like minimalism and like the Swedish aesthetic model and like, just very alienating conceptual designs that in a way is like almost an aesthetic, an act of like aesthetic like subversion or terrorism. But I think that it's not simple to just say, well, let's go back to like, Rococo or Baroque buildings, because those civilizations that produced what we consider as fine art and fine architecture, they had a spiritual impulse to them that don't really make sense through a like modern materialist lens. And this, ironically enough, is kind of like why a lot of like Marxist theory falls apart when you analyze things like the base and the superstructure, like the base being material conditions, right? How are you going to explain Titian or even like Botticelli, or let's say a great architect, like even like Frank Lloyd Wright, how are you going to explain that through like material conditions, right? I mean, maybe in some abstract way, but in terms of the spiritual heart of a civilization, that's the problem before we can say, well, let's make our buildings beautiful again. That's like, the aesthetic is like a barometer to point to the heart of any given society. And so we're sort of putting the cart before the horse by saying that, why can't we just legislate away, like what Trump wanted to do, which was a noble endeavor, which is we can promote like classical architecture, but that's just a band-aid, because the people that have created the conditions for this like modern, gaudy, disgusting, like non-place society, that's the problem, not like just merely the representation. The aesthetics mean nothing if they don't have the sort of metaphysics behind them, and vice versa. The metaphysics don't make sense without the aesthetics. So that's my spiel. And also, after Super Chats, I wanted to ask Michael Scotto specifically about astrology, but we'll hold that. Right. If you're pressed for time, Adam, that's
yeah. I actually have a guest tonight, so I do have to be leaving in about 25 minutes, if that's cool. But
excellent. So let us go into Super Chats right now. So we have Robert Wiles, $4.99. Have a blessed day and blessed life doing what you love, Adam and everyone there. I appreciate that, Robert. Then we have over here Etienne Marx. That's an interesting name, Etienne. Is that French? Who donated 15 squiggly line. Is this fake money? What is this exactly? Let me take a look at that.
Lines.
Oh, this is shekels. I think this is the first time, Gio, this is the first time we got shekels on Break the Rules stream.
I knew you here for that.
Lev's by the way, handler came through.
For all my fellow Jews out there, L'Shana Tova, Happy New Year. So there we go. And here we go. And by the way, let's see what else we have over here. Let's see. We also have, Hopper, who wrote something, and Nico. Both of you guys, I love you, but you could go fuck yourselves. But I love you. Anyway, over here,
what do you mean?
We have
Etienne I support Hopper and Nico.
Etienne Marx, 15 shekels, who says, "I'm a genius. I coined a great new term for the stuff they're injecting into us for the coof, the wokey pokey."
I thought the Fauci ouchie was pretty good, but that's...
Here we go. Next we have Minion TM69. Oh God, the imagery that creates in my head. This is the burden of having an active imagination. Like all these things that just come at you. Although, would it really work? It would look like two pills that would be, like one on top of...
I'm pretty sure some boomer has shared an edit of Minions in bondage here. I'm pretty sure that's happened.
So $5 to Super Chat. The Great Reset is here. We need to wake up and stand against it. We are out of time. So there we go.
I would appreciate the Great Reset more if they came out with a Hugo Boss aesthetic line that Klaus Schwab wears. I think he does have a spiffy evil villain outfit. So
you will own nothing and you will be happy.
Yeah. Oh.
There we go. So you have a question for Michael.
Oh yeah. No, it's funny because the Max Durant stream, we touched a little bit on astrology, and I wonder, have you ever read Carl Jung's analysis of he was trying to figure out the origins of astrology in different civilizations, and he had this weird kind of convoluted theory where astrology isn't specifically an objective force in the universe, but rather each civilization had to find a way to interpret the collective unconscious, and therefore astrology was this divination that can only work in certain civilizations and not others. So what do you think of have you ever read this? I forget which book it comes from.
Well, the good news is we don't need to go to the past to see how astrology might work. We can look towards the future. So I've been doing a lot of deep dive into physics, and physics is starting to get really, really weird. For example, one leading physicist at Princeton said that space-time is doomed as a concept, as in it doesn't exist. So essentially my overall theory on astrology is that there's some kind of fundamental force in which consciousness is unioned with the physical universe. And Jung talked a lot about this. He called this the unus mundus, which is like you
Yes.
have the world of the psyche and you have the physical world, and we live in like the cross section of both. So that's how he
Yeah.
explained synchronicity, which he called the acausal connecting principle. So I think when it comes to cultures, it's they're kind of saying they're kind of expressing their unit of reality, which I say is like that union of the subjective and the objective, like from where they're standing, right? So one of the things that I'm excited about in our lifetime, at some point, someone's going to be born on Mars, right? So we have to apply that same principle when someone's born on Mars. Like, what does the universe look like from where they're standing when they're born on Mars?
I wonder, will there be ghosts of Mars?
Well, supposedly Mars was once inhabited by human beings too, so who knows? Like that would be a different
warrior race, Lev, that submerged their souls into a chamber, and it took what's his name, Ice Cube, to go up there. No, I'm referring to the John Carpenter movie.
We have a quote here from Jacob Castro, grandson of Fidel Castro. Carl Jung, Frank Lloyd Wright. I may have found a new home. Hope you enjoy Calvin and Hobbes and Pink Floyd. So
you could probably write something about how Frank Lloyd. Well, because Frank Lloyd Wright was heavily inspired by Taoism in terms of his in like feng shui in terms of his design sensibility, and he like predates the hippies in terms of an artist that took inspiration from the quote unquote East. I mean, that term itself is like, exotic or whatever. But well, Adam, what do you think of astrology? I was never bought onto it till Michael read my my charts.
And Michael is a master. Michael is a master astrologist. If any of you guys who are listening to this want to get an astrological reading from Michael, please contact him in his email, scottomj at gmail.com. But yeah.
What do I think about astrology? I mean, my wife did a lot of digging into it and was like really, delved in, and we talked a lot about it. And I've actually had someone else read my chart on a different stream. I don't know if you know who Karlin Borisenko is. I joined her on her show, and someone had my details. And it's interesting how it relates to it. And I like, we're water, right? I'll make it make sense of why I bring that up, because we're over 70% water, and you think about just the moon, right? And the tides, right? What the moon does with the water on the earth, it literally pulls the entire oceans around and manipulates everything. And the term lunatic is when it's a full moon, people tend to be a little crazy, a little cuckoo, because we are being pulled and manipulated by the moon. And that's energy from an external force. So so that chart that he was showing, it shows where all of the different planets are aligned when you're born and where you're born. And I believe it. I think there is some imprint. I actually came up with this on my own, called a soul sphere. When everyone's born, it's a perfect circle or a perfect sphere, right? But that imprint, you get it. There's like almost like a tattoo on it, and that's your astrology print. And then as you grow up in life, different things affect you in different ways and start changing the way, it might be dented here, it might grow in other places, and then we all become such strong individuals throughout our lives, because every single human being has a different life, has a different experience, has different interactions with other spheres and other things that are going on. But because we're water beings, it makes sense to me that the dynamic of where we're born, when we pop out of the womb, suddenly there's like, we're separated and we're now on our own from, we were being carried to, then boom, suddenly we're like, on this planet. I don't know. I get it. I think there is some truth to it, and that people are trying to write it off as some sort of mumbo jumbo, but I don't think I think that's denying something very obvious to me, where we are affected by gravity. Like, just look at the way the moon affects us. If you deny that, then it's like, well, then how can you deny that? We are affected by the moon. The moon affects the water. We are water. right? So if you just take a step back and look at the bigger picture, and that's essentially what astrology is to me. So I believe it. I think there's a lot of truth to it.
And Michael, would you like to add anything to that as well, as far as your experience of astrology and how you see it playing a role in the greater picture of existence?
Yeah, so my regular job is I'm a software engineer. I try to be as objective as possible to the point people have accused me of having slight autism. So, but behind me is 250 books. Most of them are not astrology, physics, biology, etc. And when I read someone's chart, I don't need to get philosophical with them. My goal, I guess, would be on scale, would just be like, let me read your chart. If it's wrong, then don't worry about it. Have a nice day. And if it's right, then let's see what's there. Like that, we don't have to. We just look at what's there. Does it say something meaningful or does it not? And most of the time, it says things that are meaningful. So.
Right. But how do you interpretation? It's the interpretation of what someone like you will see in their chart, because the chart will exist for everyone where the planets are aligned, and you might see something that will connect to them and be like, wow, that really does affect me. Or you might not, they might not see any sort of connection to where they are at that moment in their life to what you're seeing in their chart.
Yeah, 100%. I think so reading my own chart is obviously the easiest because I know what I'm thinking and feeling, and I'm like, did something meaningful happen or not? Sometimes when you read like celebrities and stuff, you don't know what's going on in their heads. You're just reading from a distance. So yeah, there's definitely that. And I think the easiest way to kind of engage people with astrology is to go for like the super major aspects, like the ones I showed with the US, where it's like, okay, Uranus is exactly returning, which only happens every 84 years. And look, there's a civil war. So it's like minimum amount of interpretation. And I think that's kind of the path forward for astrology, is try to minimize the interpretation. But once you're like convinced, okay, this stuff works, then you could be more open-minded and be like, oh, like, I wonder what this means, and kind of get into the philosophy behind it.
But do you think that there is some kind of a framework in the universe, kind of like a clock mechanism of fate? Like, how would you describe it? And do you believe in fate, or do you believe that we have enough of free will to work against fate and to kind of chart our own course?
Yeah,
and this is also for everybody as well, but Michael, you start.
Yeah. So like I said, modern physics is, like I said, space-time is doomed. You can Google that. Everything is, all the physics seems to be going towards the immaterial basis of the universe. In talking about quantum consciousness and things like that. So we don't know what consciousness is. We don't know what the universe is, and I think it's moving in the direction of an immaterial basis. And I think that's where we'll find like how something like astrology, and by the way, tarot and all these other metaphysical things could make sense. It'll take some time to get there. But that's kind of where I would put myself there.
Excellent. And then Gio, and then Adam, as well as then for final thoughts before we conclude on what exactly you see happening in not the whole political sphere, but just in the sphere of the kind of content creation that you do, that we do, like where exactly you see things going. But first, Gio on astrology, and then Adam on astrology.
I don't know. I used to think.
Is it against? Is it a sin? Is astrology a sin?
I mean, it is a form. I mean, as I've said before, it is considered a form of soothsaying. But I think that I don't know. I mean, I think I would err on the side of caution as a Catholic. But other than that, I don't know. I mean, there's some validity to it. Obviously, I think I don't know. I mean, I think it's more than just a meme. But yeah, as for where we're going, I mean, I hope like we're around in 5 years. I don't know. I think that there's going to be probably more of a seriousness to what we're doing. I mean, people are going to start seeing like burning through grifters faster, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, before actually Adam answers, Michael, astrologically speaking, not specifically for BTR, although that would be nice, but in general, where do you see like this independent, not part of the establishment, part of the YouTube or video, it doesn't have to be YouTube, but in general, like the video creator community going?
Well, I mean, everything. There's multiple planets in Aquarius, which have to do with the people. It's been that way since basically early 2020. That was the same thing that we saw during the civil rights movement and the invention of the internet. So there's no better time for like decentralized crypto, localism, this kind of stuff. And I think it's a very favorable time for people to lead independently and figure out who they are aside from the crowd.
That sounds good to me. So, Adam, same thing. Like, any final thoughts on astrology as well as where you see things headed? And lastly, I wanted to ask you about your coffee, but we're gonna save the best for last. So.
I love that. Well, you asked about fate, right? Does fate exist, or does free will supersede fate? And I think that they're tied together, right? I mean, whatever people decide to do, that is fate. Right, so I can choose to turn the stream off right now. I can.
Please don't.
No, but you know what I mean. I could
I know,
choose.
yeah.
I have the ability to do that. I could do that. Now I'm choosing not to, and thus creating what fate is. Right. And soothsaying. Geo mentioned soothsaying about astrology but everything I know about astrology isn't predicting the future. It's reading about what has been. Everything comes around and goes around. So you learn about the past, and that's kind of what our waking reality is anyway. It's what we've known about has happened. That's how I know a stove is hot. That's how I know a bee will sting me if I grab it and squish it in my hand, because it'll sting. It's stung. Not that I've ever squished a bee in my hand, but you know what I mean? It's like the waking reality is something that we've learned. And fate is tied directly to the decisions that we make. Deja vu. What do you think deja vu is? Just curious, and I'm gonna tell you what I think it is. This is a question for you, Lev.
All right, let's see.
Deja vu.
I think that there is this realm of the Akashic records, or whatever you want to call it, of all the possibilities of things that have happened, and that our ego self may live in these multiple, like a dream reality combined with a physical reality, and we may already have a certain course in mind of what we're going to experience when it comes to a fate, like maybe in the bonus round of the afterlife in between incarnations, we have certain plans of, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and this is what's going to happen. I'm going to have to make a choice here. Do I have what it takes to make the right one? And then I think like all these various possibilities from this etheric realm are brought to this one. And again, I am no scientist. I have to learn physics, all that stuff. But I do think that this physical reality is more of an extension of the mental one. It's more of like ideas coming to life, coming to the solid life that we're so used to seeing that we consider this to be the only reality. So I think that this deja vu feeling, which I've experienced multiple times, is kind of like this other realm speaking to us of like, you can go in this direction and this is what's going to happen, like kind of like a reminder of this road in front of you here, this is going to be a bit of a shock, a bit of a reminder where you have to go. Now let's see if you can make the right choice.
So that's cool. I like that. I like that thought. And it's similar to what I believe deja vu is for me anyway. I've had multiple dreams in my life where it'll be very vivid. I wake up and I'm like, that was not like a weird abstract dream. That was like something that I envisioned. And later on in my life, I'll have a feeling of deja vu. And it was like that dream that I had. And that's what it feels like. And every time I feel it, it's usually after I've made a decision. So similar to what you're saying, but instead of before the decision is made, it feels to me that it happens afterwards. And I always get a sense of, I made the right choice. This is where I'm supposed to be. This is what my fate, the decision that I made brought me to the fate that I'm an optimistic person, right? So I always try to find the optimistic side of things. So I always tend to believe like I'm making the right choice. I'm where I belong in life. So I think, and people will argue that it's actually some sort of a, misfire in the brain. And I don't know if that's true because I've had very vivid dreams. And this goes back to when I was a kid too. I had this reoccurring dream about walking up a stairwell, and I went to a new school after moving. And first day at school, I walked in and I stood at the stairwell, and I stopped. I stood there for like 5 minutes. I was maybe 6 or 7, but it was so strong. I was like, this is the stairwell for my dream.
Wow.
What is going on? Like, I missed my first class because I was so freaked out as a kid. Like, what is this? Like, this isn't real. This is my stairwell that I visioned multiple times in dreams that I've had. And I've never been able to explain that in my life. And it feels like every time deja vu has hit me since that moment, I'm like, yeah, I've been here before, somewhere. I don't know.
That is really well said. And the final question about your coffee empire. How did this start? And why should we buy your coffee as opposed to some other coffee?
And Bruce asks if there's xenoestrogens in your coffee or not.
No, there isn't. So my coffee, I love coffee. I drink 3 things in my life. I drink water, I drink coffee, and I drink whiskey. Crigler whiskey was actually one of the largest whiskey distilleries, distributors in America in about 1887 to about 1917. So I'm very intrigued in whiskey, and I started doing my own show and like branding and stuff, and I started a coffee company because I met a roaster who reached out to me, who is able to roast for me, and it's great. I mean, I love it. My mom created the logo herself. She drew it, and it's beautiful. It's a shield. I don't have it, my mug with me, but I saw you actually showing it somewhere earlier in the little chat.
Oh yeah, right over here. Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. So my mom actually drew that herself. It's
Nice.
Really awesome. And I love coffee. I love fresh coffee. I was a barista at a coffee shop. I was a manager at a coffee shop at a different location at a different time in my life. So I've always had coffee. I'm a musician, and I used to go to this place, Mud Coffee in New York, and I would sit and write all my songs in the back of this coffee shop, just drinking coffee. So it's a big part of my life, and so I love it. So now I really did it for me. Like, I wanted my own coffee. I wanted to be able to make my own blends. And the one thing I love about my coffee over anything you can get at a store is my coffee has a little sticker on it that says roasted on this date, where you go to the store and it says best by this a specific date, and you never know when they roasted that coffee. So when you order coffee from me, the order goes to my roasters, and they'll roast it on the spot and then send it to you. So you get it. Literally the freshest coffee you can get is by ordering Crigler coffee. Unfortunately, we're only available in the States currently because international shipping is just.
What about
really
Alaska,
expensive.
Hawaii? Are you gonna?
I don't think. Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure continental United States sends to. I think shipping in the States is shipping in the States. I'm sure there's actually more expensive, or it's a little more expensive probably, but it is really delicious coffee, and I stand by it.
Well, I'm thinking of which blend to get. I see you have a gamer's blend over here.
That's a darker roast. That's a darker roast. So, and it tends to be a little stronger, that one. If you like stronger coffee, so the gamer's blend, it's for staying up all night, gaming, staying awake. That's why we named it the gamer's blend. So,
do you have the Sigma grind set brew? That'll be the seasonal Sigma grind set.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, speaking of the Sigma grind set, I want to do one final promotion. On Tuesday, we are going to have a stream with Grift Shop. And not only with Grift Shop, but we are also going to have it with Bad Billy Pratt, who's coming in, talking about his book, Welcome to Hell. So as you can see, there's the illustration over here. We got the Lapras balloon. We got Grift over here in the background. We got that lady. She's a nice-looking lady, right, Adam? You see that lady over there?
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, she looks nice. And we got Garfield, and we got Ninja Turtle, which represents the masked bastard Charles Khan, who's coming in. We got the Luchador. We got the Luchador mask.
Charles Khan is great.
Charlie's amazing. We got the Luchador mask, which represents Sustained Haynes 718 TV. And of course, in the background, if you could see the toilet over here with that can, That can is a White Claw, which is in the Silent Hill toilet for all the people who are aware of that particular incident that they had at the party. And anyway, that is all I wanted to say there. Adam, thank you so much for coming in. This is a real pleasure to speak with you. I would love to have you back anytime. You are amazing.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate you having me on. I part of building your own image and being a YouTuber is going onto other people's platforms. So I appreciate anyone who doesn't know who I am. If you gave me a follow, I appreciate that. If you liked any of my ideas, I do a daily show Monday through Friday, 6:30 to whenever I end. Really, it depends on the super chats. But I really do appreciate it. I cover random stuff from politics to space to science, pretty much anything that catches my ear, philosophical conversations, whatever. I love it. Tonight I'm having a girl, her name is Julia Song, on the show. She actually grew up in Brazil and escaped to America, and she has been very vocal about what's going on in America and that we need to be very aware of our freedoms being taken away. And of course, there's a lot of that going on in Brazil right now, where they're fighting the Supreme Court. So we're going to be discussing what's going on there and her red pill journey and all that. So it's going to be a great show. So thanks for having me on.
Man, Beast Bolsonaro takes the fuck over. No, I mean, I have my criticisms of, but yeah, this has been great, Adam. Thank you very much. I do have one more thing to say really quickly. Last night during the mass debate in my country, Trudeau, he did this thing where he dissed rebel media. Not that I like rebel media. I think Ezra Levant's got skeletons in his closet. But
and they're also affiliated with the Russian government. Well, not affiliated with them, but they kind of they're
come on, Lev.
They're kind of gullible when it comes to the Russian government.
They're being paid off by big oil, but that's besides the point. Saying that they're disinformation, they divide the country. I mean, this is coming from Justin Trudeau, so God, I don't know.
Yes.
But
well, anyway, guys, and be sure to contact Michael Scotto, scottomj at gmail.
Yeah, throw them someone was asking.
scottomj, yeah. SCOTTOMJ
at gmail.com.
We'll throw in the chat, Lev. Someone was asking for just they could copy paste.
Oh, sure. I'm going to do that right now. And while I'm doing that, I also want to tell everybody who is watching this, the only way that we can keep, making BTR what it is, the only way that I'll be able to go in and edit the shorts and find the guests and bring all this stuff together is if you guys become a patron. So become a patron at patreon.com/breaktherules. Exactly how I say it, break the rules. That's the sentence you have to write down there. And when you become a $5 patron, you're going to get access to our hidden Discord areas. You're going to get MP3s of the episodes after they come out. You are going to get streams for Patreons only. And when you become a $20 member, you are going to get a beautiful wooden magnet like the one I'm holding in my hand right now. I know that we have a lot of artisans, craftsmen who are watching this right now, including Montana Horseman. I think you're also into a lot of these crafts. So this is a beautiful wooden moth, which my father made based on Brittany Venti's love of moths. We had Brittany on many episodes recently, so this is based on her. But anyway, you are going to get that for $20, and you are also going to get, when you become a $30 member, you are also going to get, in addition to that, a beautiful Patreon print from Giovanni Pennacchietti from the TFW No GF series. You can see on the screen the process of Gio making these beautiful prints come to life, and this could be yours. And $50 is going to get you all of the above, plus a custom magnet, a custom wooden magnet, whatever design you want. If upon request you want also a printout of one of the thumbnails that my father drew, that can also be done upon request. You are also going to get another painting from Gio, a very beautiful Bob Ross style painting. You are going to get beautiful Warhammer 40k figures painted by Jules Hamilton. And you are also going to get, Michael, patrons in general get a certain percentage off their fortunes. Is that right?
Yeah, 25% off.
There we go, 25% off. your fortunes. So once again, patreon.com/break the rules. Go there or be square. And if there are certain horsemen living in Montana who would want a beautiful wooden horse to decorate their home with, I'm not implying anything. I'm just throwing it out there, throwing it out into the ether. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Adam, Geo, also follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/LevPo.
Oh, my YouTube channel.
Dreams. Oh, we're doing it. Don't worry, Geo. We are definitely doing it. You are very quick on the draw. I do not forget. So twitter.com/LevPo. Follow me on Twitter and follow Geo on Twitter at twitter.com/GiantGeo. Wonderful mass debater Twitter poster. Then you are going to go to youtube.com/GiantArtProductions. That is Geo's stomping grounds. Please watch his wonderful videos talking about art and all that good stuff. And after that, go to youtube.com/Lev Polyakov. I am also an animation director. Watch my animations. They are very awesome. And I'm also making NFTs. #InvestInLev. So go to superrare.com/Lev Polyakov. Check out some of my NFTs. Buy my NFTs. And also buy my father's NFTs. superrare.com/Alex-Polyakov or _Polyakov. Alex_Polyakov. There you go. This is the end of the stream. I've been talking too much. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe, add a like, click that goddamn bell.
He's a carnival barker, people.
Woo! All right, take care, everybody.